Jury selection is now complete in the federal fraud case against rapper and singer Sean Kingston and his mother.
You're way too beautiful, girl.
Sean Kingston couldn't say a word as he was escorted out of the courtroom hours ago.
The federal fraud trial for rapper Sean Kingston and his mother are now underway in Fort Lauderdale.
Suicidal when they say it's over.
New tonight, a guilty verdict in the federal fraud trial of singer Sean Kingston and his mother Janice Turner.
What if you discovered that the once beloved singer behind a breezy summer anthem was actually orchestrating a massive web of luxury fraud, roping in superstar names, and leaving a trail of unpaid bills and empty promises across the country? Imagine a scandal that starts with a simple sound system and ends a federal courtroom with the defendant sobbing, screaming for his mother's safety, and facing the very real possibility of decades behind bars. This is not a rumor or a half-baked internet theory. This is the extraordinary story of Sean Kingston, a pop sensation turned alleged con artist, whose entire empire of wealth and fame now stands exposed as nothing more than a house of cards. Buckle up. This is the kind of tale that blends celebrity drama, financial crimes, and a jaw-dropping family twist into one high-octane saga you simply can't look away from. Sean Kingston once reigned as a pop prince. He blasted onto the music scene in 2007 with the infectious track Beautiful Girls. The upbeat, reggae-infused single climbed to Billboard's #1 spot almost overnight, transforming him into a household name. He became the first Jamaican-American artist in decades to hold the top slot, and industry insiders instantly pegged him as a fresh, exciting talent. For a moment, the world only knew Kingston as a laid-back crooner with a carefree style. He popped up in countless summer playlists, and fans around the globe danced to his smooth vocals. He wore oversized chains, sported fashionable outfits, and collaborated with some of the biggest names in pop. On the outside, he looked like a financially stable young star destined for long-term success. Yet, beneath the surface, a different story simmered. Even during his early fame, Kingston's family had a history of legal trouble that would foreshadow what was to come. The seeds of fraud were planted long before Beautiful Girls dominated the radio, and they would eventually grow into a mammoth scandal. After Beautiful Girls, fans expected a steady stream of hits. Kingston did have a few follow-up singles, some modest chart success, and high-profile collaborations. For a while, it appeared he would maintain his place in the spotlight. But as the 2010s rolled on, he seemed to fade from mainstream consciousness. His name surfaced now and then. Maybe he appeared at a club event, maybe a small guest spot on someone else's track, but nowhere near the level of his breakout success. This raised an obvious question. If he wasn't pumping out chart-topping hits, how on earth was Sean Kingston funding his extravagant lifestyle? He still showed off exotic cars on social media. He flaunted huge diamond necklaces in paparazzi snaps. He partied in expensive venues usually reserved for top-tier artists, pulling in millions a year. The math simply didn't add up. These visible signs of wealth demanded a solid income. Yet, Kingston's music royalties from older tracks and occasional appearances couldn't possibly support such grandeur, especially as the years wore on and fresh income streams appeared non-existent. People wondered, but mostly brushed it off. Maybe he had side investments? Perhaps he was just good at managing money. Nobody investigated too deeply until the illusions came crashing down, triggered by a civil lawsuit over a sound system that unleashed a tidal wave of federal scrutiny. The spark that ignited this bonfire controversy was startlingly small in the grand scheme of luxury and celebrity. It wasn't an unpaid mansion or a leased private jet that triggered the legal meltdown. It was a $150,000 surround sound system, the kind you'd find in the homes of people who make serious money. Sean Kingston had it installed in his lavish residence, promising to pay. In fact, his promise included a promotional video that would feature Justin Bieber. The company providing the setup believed Kingston's pitch completely. After all, he was a known name, and having Bieber in a marketing piece sounded like gold. But once the system was installed, Kingston vanished. There was no promotional video, no sign of Bieber, and crucially, no payment for the equipment. All the company received were fake wire transfer confirmations, bare-bones evidence that never materialized into real money. Enraged, the sound system provider took legal action. At first, it seemed like just another civil dispute, a vendor chasing a celebrity for non-payment. However, this legal tangle pulled back the curtain on something far more extensive. Investigators uncovered a pattern of similar complaints from other luxury providers, jewelers, car dealerships, and more. A mosaic of fraudulent activities came into view, all linked to one central figure, Sean Kingston. Court records revealed a crucial player in the saga, Janice Turner, Sean Kingston's mother. She wasn't a background figure handing out snacks on the sidelines. Turner had an extensive criminal record dating back to at least 2006, where she pleaded guilty to bank fraud and fake loan applications. Her conviction led to prison time, from which she was released mere months before Beautiful Girls catapulted Sean Kingston to international fame. Prosecutors claimed Turner was not only aware of her son's alleged fraudulent dealings, she actively participated. Her role reportedly included forging documents, producing counterfeit wire transfers, and leveraging her son's celebrity status to secure high-end goods that were never paid for. This wasn't an accidental slip-up. The evidence pointed to a meticulously orchestrated operation, perfected over years. To outside observers, it appeared the mother-son duo was simply enjoying the spoils of Kingston's chart-topping success. In reality, they were allegedly crafting and executing a complex fraud scheme involving phantom bank transactions and bold-faced lies about celebrity connections. Witness testimony described Janice Turner as a methodical planner who used her past experience with fraud to shape new, even more audacious schemes. From the outside, Kingston's lifestyle seemed like a rapper's dream. Mansions, designer clothing, flashy sports cars, and an entourage. Inside, it was a fantasy empire constructed on a shaky foundation. Federal investigators traced how Kingston would sign for big-ticket items, such as jewelry worth hundreds of thousands, by forwarding bank confirmations that were nothing more than doctored screenshots. These items ranged from custom diamond pieces to entire sets of rims for luxury vehicles. In many cases, Kingston or his mother would promise beneficial promotions in return for the goods. They claimed the business supplying the merchandise would receive brand exposure through celebrity shout-outs or appearances in music videos. For a while, people fell for it. Why wouldn't they? Kingston was, at one point, a legitimate star who had rubbed shoulders with industry giants like Justin Bieber. But over time, more vendors realized they had been conned. Payments never arrived. Promotional commitments were never honored. An attempt to contact Kingston's camp resulted in silence or endless excuses. Anger grew. Lawsuits multiplied, and eventually, the tide of legal pressure became impossible to ignore. Civil cases can be messy, but they usually don't end in criminal convictions. The difference here was the scale and consistency of the alleged fraud. Multiple states had claims against Kingston. Each case showed the same pattern: large luxury items, fake wire transfers, zero actual payment, and the star's mother deeply entrenched in the dealings. Federal authorities got wind of the pattern and launched an official investigation, citing potential wire fraud, a serious charge that can carry up to 20 years in prison per count. Forensic accountants, digital crime specialists, and other experts dug into bank records, online transactions, and contract documents. They found glaring discrepancies. Amounts listed in bank confirmations didn't match actual bank logs. Signatures appeared identical on documents, supposedly signed months apart. Company emails referencing planned promotional events were never followed by real confirmations. As investigators connected the dots, the entire puzzle formed an eye-opening image of systematic deception. This wasn't about being bad with money. The evidence strongly suggested that Kingston and Turner never intended to pay for these luxury services. They maintained a high-class facade to keep up appearances, a veneer that grew more elaborate and more fragile with each new acquisition. When the federal charges finally came down, the resulting courtroom spectacle was almost cinematic. Kingston appeared tense, but relatively composed at first. Janice Turner, by contrast, looked nervous from the start, likely aware that her previous bank fraud conviction would weigh heavily against her credibility. The prosecution systematically laid out the case: fake wire transfers, hard evidence of doctored bank confirmations for jewelry, cars, and the infamous sound system, non-existent promotional deals, emails and messages showing how Kingston promised appearances by high-profile artists, including Justin Bieber, to close deals he had no intention of honoring, repeat offenses, documentation proving Janice Turner's previous conviction, and how she applied the same tactics to these new scams. When it was Turner's turn to take the stand, her testimony proved disastrous. She contradicted herself multiple times, presenting incomplete or impossible timelines. Legal analysts in the courtroom stated that each contradiction made the jury trust her less. A prior conviction for similar crimes only worsened her credibility. Kingston did not testify, a decision likely made by his defense team to prevent potentially incriminating cross-examination. His lawyers argued he was financially illiterate, too immersed in the celebrity lifestyle to truly understand the fraudulent nature of these transactions. The prosecution countered by pointing out the repetitive, organized nature of the scams, asserting that this was not accidental ignorance, but a deliberate plan carried out year after year. When the guilty verdict came in, witnesses described the scene as emotionally intense. Sean Kingston allegedly burst into tears. The courtroom fell into chaos when officers immediately moved to detain Janice Turner. Kingston shouted, "Protect my mother," as she was taken away. The tension was palpable, underscoring just how deeply intertwined the two were in this entire fraudulent operation. Sean Kingston and Janice Turner each face 5 counts of federal wire fraud. Each count can carry up to 20 years in prison. Realistically, sentencing can vary, but the cumulative maximum runs up to 100 years. Few expect a court to impose the absolute maximum, yet Turner, as a repeat offender, likely faces a harsher sentence than first-time perpetrators. Legal experts predict that the judge may hand down a substantial prison term precisely because the fraud was methodical, long-running, and impacted multiple businesses across state lines. Federal courts often aim to send a message with such high-profile cases, ensuring no other celebrity or influencer thinks they can con their way into luxuries without facing severe consequences. As for restitution, the numbers could be staggering. Victims are lining up to claim damages, from jewelers to car dealerships to smaller businesses that were conned out of expensive goods or services. Every unpaid invoice adds another layer of debt Sean Kingston will have to face if the court mandates compensation. Considering the scale of the operation, many are skeptical that victims will ever fully recover what was lost. Kingston's career had already stalled, but the scandal essentially cements its downfall. Rebranding after a federal fraud conviction is an uphill battle in the music industry. Fans might still play Beautiful Girls for nostalgia, but booking agents, record labels, and sponsors generally avoid artists mired in legal crises, especially crimes involving moral turpitude, like fraud. Brand destruction might be an understatement. The moment he invoked Justin Bieber's name to secure free goods, he risked alienating fellow artists. The entertainment world is known for drama, but nothing torpedoes relationships faster than dragging an innocent celebrity's name into a con. Those in the industry who once considered collaborating are likely distancing themselves as quickly as possible. Some speculate Kingston could attempt a comeback by pivoting to independent releases or forming a new brand identity as a cautionary tale. But with legal battles still ongoing, any such move will be overshadowed by news of his sentencing, possible appeals, and attempt at restitution. The question persists, why risk everything? By the time the hits dried up, Kingston was still recognized as a beloved one-hit or few-hit wonder. He could have performed at smaller venues, gone on nostalgia tours, or harnessed his platform in a more modest but honest way. Instead, he chose a path of perpetual illusions, dripping in diamonds, living in mansions, and riding exotic cars, despite a lack of sustainable income. Observers note that the allure of wealth and status is intense, especially in an industry that thrives on perception. If Kingston were seen driving a basic car or wearing toned-down outfits, the public might assume he'd lost his relevance. Maintaining a high-profile image often helps celebrities book gigs, generate headlines, or appear on music features. In that sense, faking it might have seemed like a necessary strategy to stay afloat. However, the scheme demanded continuous escalations. Each new fraud had to outdo the last. Once you claim Justin Bieber will appear in promotional video, you either deliver or fabricate stories. When that doesn't happen, and the more lavish the charade, the harder it becomes to keep under wraps. Ultimately, the entire structure collapsed under its own weight. A detailed look at the case files reveals how the mother-son operation functioned. Phase 1. Identify target. Luxury item suppliers, such as high-end jewelers, audio system companies, or car dealerships. Phase 2. Celebrity pitch. Kingston or Turner would reach out, touting his star status and offering brand exposure or promotional collaborations. This included references to major names like Justin Bieber to seal the deal. Phase 3. Delivery and fake payment. Once the business agreed, the goods or services would be delivered based on partial deposits, often suspiciously small, or mock-ups of wire transfers that were never officially cleared. Phase 4. Ghosting. After receiving the items, communication dropped. If pressed for payment, Kingston's team sent doctored screenshots or spurious excuses. Lawsuits sometimes followed, but those took time, allowing the scheme to continue elsewhere. This cycle repeated in multiple states. By the time some vendors realized they'd been conned, Kingston had already moved on to the next target. The feds built their case by interviewing victims, comparing false wire confirmation documents, and matching them to identical fonts, headers, or account details. The evidence was deemed irrefutable, showcasing a consistent playbook used over and over. Janice Turner's prior conviction in 2006 for bank fraud underscores a deep familiarity with illegal financial schemes. At the time, she pleaded guilty to falsifying loan applications. She served her sentence, got out in early 2007, and entered a world where her son had just become a breakout superstar. The timing is striking. Many analysts argue that Turner's know-how in forging documents may have provided the blueprint for the subsequent spree. Combined with Kingston's celebrity leverage, the duo formed a formidable team. Where average scammers might struggle to lure high-end brands, Kingston's fame opened doors. Where celebrities usually rely on their management to keep finances above board, Turner's involvement seemingly steered them toward fraud. When Turner took the stand in the recent trial, her attempt to paint herself as uninformed about the details collapsed under questioning. Prosecutors presented a paper trail of emails and documents that she had personally signed or submitted, each connected to questionable transactions. By the end of her testimony, legal observers stated that the jury likely saw her as the scam's linchpin, someone who actively guided and sustained the operation rather than a naive bystander. While fraud is a central issue, the emotional undertones run deep. The sight of a son shouting, "Protect my mother," as she was taken into custody underscores a complex bond. Some suggest that Kingston might have been drawn into a world of deceit by the very person who raised him, shaped by her earlier criminal experience. Others argue that Kingston, as an adult, knew exactly what was happening and benefited from it tremendously. This isn't just a story of money and fraud. It's the story of how far people will go to maintain an illusion and keep family close, even if it means risking freedom. The mother-son dynamic adds a layer of tragedy to the scandal. Though both face potential jail time, the heartbreak of seeing a parent or child sentenced remains an emotional blow that extends beyond mere legal consequences. Fans who grew up listening to Beautiful Girls responded with a mix of disbelief and anger. Some took to social media to express disappointment, recounting how Kingston's feel-good music had accompanied countless summer memories. Others dissected every detail of the fraud, labeling Kingston a con artist who betrayed his fan base by exploiting the goodwill attached to his early success. Music industry professionals distanced themselves quickly. While some remained silent to avoid tangling with legal drama, others plainly condemned the actions, pointing out that financial crimes harm not just the direct victims, but the culture at large. Each fraudulent deal tarnishes trust between artists, vendors, and fans. As for the general public, the case drew curiosity akin to a true crime episode. The downfall of a once popular celebrity, especially via such outlandish circumstances, captures widespread attention. News outlets splash headlines about Kingston's meltdown in court, the mother's immediate attainment, and the staggering potential for decades in federal prison. One lingering question is whether Justin Bieber, whose name was repeatedly invoked to lure in businesses, might take legal action. While Bieber himself has not issued any public statement or filed any known lawsuits, the fact that his name was used to anchor fraudulent promises remains a glaring detail. Some legal experts speculate that if Bieber or his team can prove reputational damage or defamation, they might have grounds for a lawsuit. Others suggest that Bieber's involvement would draw unwanted publicity to a case that has no tangible impact on him personally, so he may choose to let it lie. Regardless of Bieber's reaction, the scandal has already tainted Kingston's reputation in the wider entertainment community. Other celebrities now have concrete reasons to sever ties or avoid future collaborations. This isolation could prove devastating if Kingston ever tries to reignite his music career. The final sentencing date looms on the horizon. Legal experts predict that the judge may use Kingston's case to signal that celebrity status does not provide immunity from serious crimes. The court could hand down a sentence that sends a clear message. Orchestrating elaborate fraud schemes carries grave legal risks, no matter how famous you are. Janice Turner, already deemed a repeat offender, faces an even more precarious future. Her role as the alleged co-mastermind, coupled with prior conviction for similar crimes, places her at high risk for a multi-year sentence. Observers note that mothers typically receive sympathy in court, but when the evidence is overwhelming, empathy only goes so far. As sentencing approaches, the question of restitution also looms large. Will Kingston or Turner be able to pay back even a fraction of what they owe? The sums are enormous, and the goods they claim to own were never actually paid for. Once the courts impose restitution, the net worth Kingston once flaunted could evaporate. His remaining assets may be seized or sold, especially if they were fraudulently acquired. Even after serving time, the stigma won't simply vanish. The music and entertainment industries have long memories. When a celebrity's name becomes synonymous with fraud or large-scale scandals, regaining trust is an uphill climb. It's not impossible to rebrand. People love a redemption arc. But in the case of Sean Kingston, the details are so egregious and the victim list so extensive that many insiders doubt a genuine comeback is feasible. Some fans might cling to nostalgic affection for Beautiful Girls, but forging new business relationships or partnerships becomes exponentially harder with federal conviction. Venues, sponsors, and record labels weigh reputational risks heavily. An artist known for scamming vendors could face closed doors at every turn. When stories like this unfold, the same question emerges. Why? Sean Kingston had a legitimate hit and a global fan base. He possessed the potential for a stable music career, even if it wasn't at the superstar level. Plenty of artists thrive on smaller tours, brand endorsements, and streaming revenue without resorting to crime. But in a culture that idolizes extreme wealth and celebrity status, the pressure to keep up appearances can become overwhelming. For Kingston, the transition from chart-topping idol to second-tier artist was perhaps too painful. Maintaining the illusion of unending success offered a form of security, or so it seemed. Janice Turner, having navigated the legal system once before, likely knew the boundaries she was crossing. Whether motivated by greed, family loyalty, or misguided belief in their ability to outsmart the law, the pair marched forward, stacking lie upon lie. Now, they're on the brink of a sentencing that could span decades. Beyond Kingston and Turner, many individuals have suffered. Small businesses that took a risk on him hoping for an influencer promotion lost valuable merchandise. Legal fees drained resources. Employees at these businesses faced turmoil as lawsuits and investigations consumed their time and funds. The ripple effect extended to the music community, too, as trust eroded between artists and vendors. Once the story broke, other celebrities became cautious about whom they associate with. Some might decline to work with Jamaican-American artists out of ignorant bias, associating one star's fraud with an entire demographic, an unfair yet possible consequence of high-profile crimes. The tarnish spreads beyond Kingston's personal brand, affecting broader industry dynamics. Modern-day fraud leaves a deep digital paper trail. Agents tracked email communications, bank statements, IP addresses used to create fake confirmations, and phone records linking Kingston and Turner to each fraudulent deal. Social media posts showcasing new jewelry or expensive cars also served as inadvertent clues. This new reality means criminals can't hide as easily behind false promises. The items featured in Kingston's Instagram posts corresponded precisely to those that vendors claimed were never paid for. Each photo or story post celebrating an extravagant purchase could be cross-referenced with bank records. Investigators effectively built a timeline of acquisitions, comparing it with deposit schedules that never materialized. Kingston's downfall serves as a cautionary tale. In the digital age, the more you flaunt, the more evidence you provide to potential investigators. Social media can inflate a celebrity's brand, but can also expedite their undoing if the lifestyle is built on deception. Media coverage framed Kingston's case like a sensational true crime series, complete with daily updates, interviews with defrauded vendors, and commentary from entertainment lawyers. Each development stirred more public fascination. Listeners who once jammed to his music in the mid-2000s were stunned to learn how far from grace he'd fallen. Podcasts dissected the story, analyzing everything from the psychological motives to the financial frameworks enabling celebrity scams. Some shows played snippets of Kingston's older interviews, highlighting discrepancies between his public persona and behind-the-scenes actions. This multi-platform coverage ensured the scandal had a broad reach, engaging both pop culture junkies and true crime enthusiasts. With the verdict delivered, all eyes turned to sentencing. The legal system can move slowly, but a date is set. Janice Turner sits in jail, no longer benefiting from house arrest or ankle monitors. Sean Kingston awaits the judge's final ruling, his every movement monitored. Will the court make an example of him, handing down a sentence that practically ends his public life? Or might he receive a more lenient term, allowing for a future redemption narrative? Investors, fans, and curious onlookers want to know how far-reaching the final outcome will be. Are more indictments in the pipeline? Will any co-conspirators or lesser-known associates face legal repercussions? Will Justin Bieber or other celebrities stake a claim for damages to their reputations? Sean Kingston's story encapsulates the lure of celebrity culture and the risks of illusion. For years, fans saw only the veneer of wealth and success. In reality, the foundation was built on fraudulent transactions, fake promises, and a desperate bid to sustain a fading spotlight. The involvement of his mother, Janice Turner, layered the narrative with familial bonds and a disturbing pattern of criminal behavior repeated across years. This saga offers a lesson in how quickly fame can disintegrate when individuals chase extravagant lifestyles without the means or integrity to back them up. It's a tale of greed, deception, and ultimately, a devastating fall from grace. As sentencing approaches, the world watches to see if Sean Kingston and his mother face decades of imprisonment, forever marking him not as a laid-back artist who once dominated the charts, but as a cautionary example of how easily stardom can curdle into scandal. Stay tuned. The final chapter of this story will unfold when the judge delivers the sentence. Whether Kingston manages any measure of a comeback or lingers as a disgraced memory in pop culture remains uncertain. One thing is clear. The era of quiet illusions is over. The truth is out, and it's painfully clear that the cost of faking a luxury lifestyle can be far higher than anyone might imagine. If you're as stunned by this saga as the rest of the world, keep your eyes peeled for the sentencing update. The moment the verdict drops on how long Sean Kingston and Janice Turner might serve, the internet will explode with reactions. Comment below with your thoughts on this unraveling empire of deceit. Should Kingston and his mother receive maximum penalties, or is there room for a second chance? The story isn't over yet. And as the final judgment day draws closer, the tension only grows. In a world addicted to celebrity drama, the Sean Kingston fraud scandal stands out as a cautionary epic, proof that even the most dazzling illusions eventually fall apart when confronted by the relentless pursuit of the truth.